Hello, this is Max Drake. I just wanted to carry on talking about this PWA expense app that I'm doing, and not really the PWA side, but really the expense side. This is where I got to at the end of the last video, and I'd been able to push a new item into the budget database, and I was also, if I've done a budget item and I've gone past that date, I can actually just clear that one away from the thing so that I have a list of what's coming up, and if it's gone past, then I can actually just say, yes, I've already spent that money, it's gone. Boom. There we go through there. So that's quite nice from that point of view. Where I've actually got to at this point in time is here. So now I actually have progress bars on each of the items. I've now reordered the items so that I actually have the total sum of what I've actually done in expenses. So my expense items are all the way down here. So I've got the sum, and then I've got the budget for each of those items. So for the food, I spent 75, but I've got 200, and so I've got 38% spent so far. And this one, I've 1,500 of the 2,000, so about 72%, etc., etc. This one's 100%. There was oh no, it's 95%. One's 1,100 and one's 1,050, and etc., etc., etc. Tech is infinity because there's nothing budgeted for it, but I've spent 199. So that's quite nice. I've got that part of the interface coming through. Now that, I must admit, I was getting very nervous with, because I thought I'd seen a video by Decode on how to do a progress bar. I think it was Decode, and it was a lot of JavaScript involved in that. So I thought, oh well, I might as well go and have the pain. But when I started to explore, there was an interesting item, which was a couple of things inside HTML. The HTML actually had a progress tag, which it's suitable for in conjunction to display the progress of a task. So 50, 75, how much percent have you actually got? Not suitable for representing a gauge, e.g. disk space usage or relevant of a query result. To represent a gauge, use the meter tag instead. So there's the progress bar and there's the meter tag, and the meter tag looks like these little things through here, not particularly sexy. It also has another couple of features. So if we just come back and look at that, I just want to talk to these because there are a few videos that I saw on them. They none of them really touched on all of the interesting points that there were. So this is the progress bar, and it has this sort of a run thing through it. These are the the meters that they come through. Now they have a really nice feature that doesn't seem to come through. Now if you see these ones here, I've got the minimum and the maximum. So the maximum is just set at 100, I've got a low at 25 and a high, and I've got an optimum. Now if I actually just go into here and my optimum is 40, I'm going to go to 80 through here for the first one, save that and just refresh that through there. You see this changes color. If I do the same thing through here and refresh, this doesn't change color, it just stays the same thing. So this is just a basic progress bar coming all the way through. Now I do find, now the other thing that's quite interesting is that's how it's represented in Firefox. If I go and do the same thing inside of Chrome, the default color inside is blue, and it actually has rounded pill ends on the end of it. So the look of the Chrome, so depending on which browser you're using, you're going to get different effects. So I didn't really want that to look like that. So in the end, I actually put a bit of CSS. So this is actually as it comes out. If you don't put any CSS or anything, this comes through as this, and this one comes through as that. So coming back to the code, there's a really nice little feature that nobody really highlighted in this. And this is that you've got the max and the min. So the min is 0 and the max is 100 or whatever, blah, blah, blah through there. I'm just going to rem out this progress bar because I find that flashy thing just a little bit irritating. So if we just come to the progress bar, we actually have the max and the min. Then we actually have a low and a high. So we can set there anywhere between the maximum and the minimum of these lows and highs. So, and we have one called optimum. Now, wherever the optimum is is where you'll get the green. So if I actually say that now, put the optimum between the low and the high. So if I go below the low, so if I go below the low to something 20 and the low is 25, and I save that and I just come through and refresh, you see it goes to amber. If I go into the same range as where the optimum is, so I go to something like 70 and save that there, you'll see it goes green because that's where the optimum is. And if I go over above, so I go to 80, and then I refresh this one here, it goes back to amber again, or gold, or whatever you actually want. So this is with the optimum set in the middle between high and low. The next one that I'm actually going to do is that I'm actually going to move these two over. Now, if I actually had something sinking, so as it got smaller and smaller, I wanted to show a red line or an emergency or something like that. So I had a gauge, and it starts off in the green. So if I now set my optimum as 80, which is above the high, and I set my value at 76, which is above the high there, and I just do a refresh. So on this one here, I'm up above the high because the 80 is above the high. Which is where optimum is. The optimum is above the high, so it still comes green. Then when I go into the medium, so I'm going to go to about 40 or 46, save that and refresh. It then moves into the amber, and then if I go below the lowest and below the low, it suddenly goes into the red. So this is a really handy way of being able to describe where you are. So what I can actually do in my other ones, which I've done, is that I've set my low to around 50. So, and I've set my optimum to 20. So it's below my low. So anything below my low, so if I actually have 45 and I save that and I do a refresh, 45 is still in the green. Then if I go between the low and the high, and I've set the high at 3/4, so I'm between 50 and 3/4, 50% and 75%. If I just go to 70% and save, you'll see that goes into the amber. And then when I go above the 75%, let's just say 78%, I then start redlining. So it's a sort of a warning that my spending's getting, I've got used up over 75% of my stuff. Now, how am I actually doing that? Inside the actual code itself, if we just go into the meter, I've got my sum total, I've got my forecast total, which I've got in brackets just to say, so inside my meter, I've got my value, which is the sum total. I've then got my maximum, a minimum is 0.1 or 0, doesn't matter. The maximum I've got is my forecast total. My low is forecast total divided by 2, so at 50%. My high is forecast total times 3 divided by 4 at 3/4, so it's 75%. And I've got my optimum at forecast total divided by 3 minus 1. So it's just inside between low and the minimum. So that's how I can actually describe all of those through over there. Now, this is in the string literal that then writes all of that stuff to the front of my script up the top there. So that's what's actually showing through there, and then I'm showing the percentages through here. Now, this is how it looks on the Chrome, and if I go into Firefox, you will see, if I go and look through there, and if I just do a refresh, it might come through, it might not, no. You'll see I've ended up rounding the corners on here, so I've added a bit of CSS, but the actual bars inside are still here. Now, on here, on the Chrome one, if it's infinity, that means there's no, you're dividing by 0, it just shows as blank. If you're infinity in here, it shows it as a full bar. So a slight difference in the way that those methods actually occur. The second thing that I've actually got, or the second challenge that I had, was to actually set a month, and this actually got me caught up on a couple of things. So at the moment, what I was saying in the database is that when I actually add a new item, I don't have a date in here because the date automatically calculates what today is and puts that as today's date. So basically your expenses are from today at the time when you actually input them. So even if you forgot one yesterday, you put in today's date or something like that. It's not such a major issue, something like that. So all we've just said is show me everything in the database after a specific date. So we've set a date at the beginning of the month and then we show everything through there. So what we can actually do is I can try doing something here, and he said, no, please select an item in the list. So I've got to select an item in the list, and so I select an item here and then I go and set that through there. And what that does, so I've just moved that to the 1st of September. Since all of my expenses have been in August, suddenly it goes to nothing. Since there's no budget, there's no nothing. It's cleaned everything out. So it's resetting the clock back to 0. So if I look at my database, you'll see if we look in the forecast and we look in current, add condition is equal to true. That means it'll be displayed into here. It isn't, there's nothing through there at all. So that's a way that we can preset things. Couple of things that caught me straight away on the number, and I still haven't quite got that working through here. Now, so in September I haven't got something. So if I go back there and reset that month to August and reset, now if I go start date, which I'll show you start day, it actually has this start day, which is the actual number for the beginning of August. It's still not displaying anything. So even if I'm refreshing or whatever, nothing's coming through. So that's a bit of a pain. I haven't got that working yet. Well, it sort of comes and works through there. Now, what I'm doing inside of here is, if let's just go right to the, get away, go right to the top of this one here, is I said the start day, and the start day is in the database. It says where the start day is larger than or equal to the specific day. And I've just said let the start day is equal to start. So therefore I've made that a global parameter that's accessible by everything. Then if the local storage, now I'm starting to use local storage for my start day. So when I select the start day in my form, so let's just go to the form and go to the bottom through here. When I select the start day, I take a number through here and I push it in. So I'm saying that's the start day that we're actually going to do. But when I run through this script, the first thing it does in the database is it rewrites sets that to 0 again. So what I've got to do is put it into a function that says, and so what I'm trying to do is I want to use local storage. I want this number to persist. So when I change it, that it stays changed. So what I'm trying to use through here to do this is a thing called local storage. Now inside local storage, I can actually store that number. So if I then shut my phone down, and then I reopen up my phone again and restart that app, this information should still be there. So it should remember that until I go forward and reset it through here. So, and I'm only doing that once a month where I reset everything back to 0. So I've got that number through there. If I actually come through and put start date, you'll see that that number matches that number there. But for some unknown reason, it's not displaying through here. And that's the earlier date that should be displaying, but nothing happens. Now, if I just go and clear this out and do a refresh, you'll see the start date comes through. But that's going back and setting this number because it's got the 1 on the end. So a millisecond. Now, that was another thing. So if I just go and do the start date and test on it, it's got the 1 at the end, so therefore it's actually going through. And because there's no the local storage has been reset to null, it's taking this variable through here. So that's one of the things when you clean out the data. But this is in the test mode, is that's fine. If you shut down your phone and you reopen up your phone, that local storage should still be there unless you've blown away your local storage. So therefore your start date should get to here. And if it doesn't, you can always go back and reset your start date again. That's something that I'm getting. So I'm getting this coming back, and it's not going back and grabbing the next item after it does it. So and it's using that form down there somewhere to get my start date. Can't remember where it is. Doesn't matter. So that's what it's doing. One of the little gotchas I got on here is if we just go into here and we go and open up, we've got the Epoch Counter. Now the Epoch Counter, normally if I set a number through here and go convert, here's a number that I get through here. And if I throw that in there and I convert, I get the time through here in stuff. But what I can also do, what actually happens when I was doing the testing, and this spent a lot of time dicking around on this, is that when I was in the database, and this number is a 10-figure number. This inside the database, though, when it actually gets the number of any particular item, that is a 13-digit number. So it's actually working on milliseconds. So whereas I was using a 10-figure epoch number, it wasn't registering because everything was earlier, so it was just showing everything all the time. So it was only when I converted it into milliseconds, so now if I do that, it says you have now entered a timestamp in milliseconds. So inside the database, it's storing as milliseconds. So once I've got that, that's fine. We can do that. I've still got that bug inside the thing that it doesn't come through and display the dates that I want, and I'm not totally comfortable with that at this point in time. So that's one thing, and I think the reason why it's not wrapped in a function, it's just going through and taking the first thing at the top there and doing it. I need to get it to force it to make this to actually happen each time, so that if there is a start date, and I need to do is first a start date and then if not. So I need to reverse those around and make sure that it tries to get the start date from the local storage first. Now, the next thing that actually happened through there, so in the app, the next thing that I've actually got is that I want to then select a whole load of items to put into the forecast. So if I just grab a few items, what I'll actually do first of here is that I'll actually just blow everything to false. So if I just go through and refresh that now, all I'm doing is showing the expenses because I've got nothing which is set to current. So I have no current items coming through here. So when I come into here, if I go and just use Control and select a few items, unfortunately, this is a materialize pickbox form, and I can only access a couple of these items through here. So if I collect a few through here, now at the same time as doing this, I actually want to drag that across there and show the database, and I want the forecast database. And so as I select items through here, if I just go down and I go up a bit, it's so irritating this is. Let's just undo some of these ones. I just refresh that. See, I've got to go back and actually clean those out a minute. So let's just hit those all to full, and then those reset through, and so those are empty. So there's nothing in my forecast and my current which is set to true. So therefore, inside here, if I refresh, it's just blank. So there's no summary because there's nothing to calculate. Now if I come into here and I select a few items, you see they're starting to add straight away through the database through there, because these are an on-change event. So when I just select those and go enter, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, now I'm showing 8 there. Now that's interesting because one of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's still showing 8. Now that's interesting because one of the things in the local storage, now I'm keeping those also in the local storage as well. So I've got 4 items there and I've got 4 items there. I am having issues where this is only showing I may have 8 items selected, but I'm only showing 7 into here, and I can't figure out why. Now here's another issue with local storage. Now inside you've got your cache, which is holding your static code. You've got your dynamic code, which is updating all the time, depending on what you're doing. So if you go and open another page, it's remembering those ones through into your dynamic side as well. You've also got your database inside the indices in the database, and it's got some information on all of those and what's actually coming through on here. And you've also got, if you are just on a specific tab and then you close that tab down, you can actually have a session storage, and that's based on what's on a page that you've stored on that page. And then you've also got local storage, which just stores anything to do with this app inside the local storage if you pushed a variable across there. So I've got a couple of variables across here. Now the variables that it's got, it did have the date one before. I don't know whether I clear that out. So if I just go in and let's reset the date, I should do that on its own actually. I can actually get those items into there. But one of the issues with the local storage is it takes a string. So it does not take arrays. It does not like playing with arrays. So one of the things which I found after looking on Mr. Google and everybody was an issue to do with that, which is, it's down about there, I think, is that normally to put something into local storage, you go local storage set. Oh, blimey, I've got to go up to the top now to remember that. Set item or get item, because it's only one item. It actually has a key and it has a name, or a key and an item. So you've actually just got key pair. So it's a bit like JSON in that method here. So when we get to this point here, we actually have to do something, and what they do is they stringify. They take the JSON object and they stringify it, and this way you can actually take an array and put it into the object as a whole lot of a JSON string. And then when you bring it out, you've got to pass that item through as a JSON pass. So therefore you've got this, you've got to put in this prototype JavaScript method to actually be able to get these items. So when you're selecting multiple items, to actually push them into an array, or sorry, to convert them from an array into a string so that they can actually sit in the database. And when you look in the database, you actually see, when you look in your local array under that variable, they come through. So that's great. That's fantastic. But it's just a thing that I didn't realize. So it was a little bit more hard work finding that out. The other thing is inside here, I can check inside Chrome on the PC, I can select multiple. Inside my app on my phone, after I use Firebase deploy and take it up, clear all of my cache out and everything out of Chrome completely, but regarding that app, and then restart it again. And if I go and select multiple items, it actually says, and I've got little tick boxes on the side here, it actually says selected 8 or selected 10 or whatever. Yet when I actually go and come out of there, it doesn't actually, it only remembers the last item and pushes that to the database. So I could actually have 15 items, but it's only the last one that gets pushed into the item. So that's the only one that gets displayed here. So if I wanted 15 items, I'd actually have to go through, select an item, refresh and do that. So get the items, go through here, do that, add that, go through, select another one through, which would actually blow away my memory because it would only be showing one item at a time, rather than the 15 or the 20 or the 40 that I might need. So that's another issue, as I don't know, as I said, it works on here, but it's not working on the Chrome on my phone. Now, I haven't tested it on the what's this one called? Firefox here, and I haven't tested it on the Firefox on my phone either. So I just need to test that. So those are the things. So overall, I actually have all of the items that I need. I actually can go through and just clear everything out and reset everything back to zero. I can go through and reset, so I can clean that out. I can set the month that I actually want. Not that it's quite working, but it's getting there, and it does when it does work. And the other thing that I can do is that I've got the button where I can actually push through here, and those are based on, if I just go and look through, they are based on selecting. When I do a selection of an item, they are actually selecting the document. So the one that describes here inside the database, inside the database, if I actually go to forecast, the document ID number for that is what I actually have on here. So this just goes and gets the document. So it gives that document or all of these documents that have actually been selected, and then it iterates through the database, takes them and resets the current to true and the paid to false on each particular point, so that as it goes through, so here it's actually taking that, so here it's getting the items from the local storage, the ones that have been selected. It's then stepping through each particular one. It's going into the database with that particular document item number. It goes and gets it. It resets these to this variable, then comes out and does it. Otherwise, it just says no, I'm Mogador. So that's how that's working through there. But again, something's happening on my mobile phone such that selections aren't quite working through there. So I may have to go to another, instead of actually using the materialize form, which is giving me the grief inside here with the selection and having this form through here, maybe I've got to choose something else. So this one I can choose multiple, and I've got the tick boxes, which I've got, and here it displays all three items that you have come through, but they're not coming through the other end through here. So that's an issue that I've actually got on my phone. The other challenge that I've got inside here, inside Chrome through here, I can do all of this debugging and everything through that. On the phone, I can't see what's in local storage. It just says you got local storage. Yeah, but what is it? What's in my local storage? What's being read? So this is a dilemma that I have. It's one thing's being treated one way here, and it's being treated differently. And again, it's a bit similar to, if we just go back through to this visually is different than what it's actually shown in here. So there's this issues of it's behaving one way on one device and it's behaving another way on one browser and on another browser. So that's one of the things. Like after I've actually got it, I put this onto a really old Android phone, and it just froze up completely, so it didn't even work. So it's a bit of a challenge. Now, I think that's got the latest Chrome. I think I updated the Chrome on it and everything, so browser. So I'm actually finding one of the issues with going these PWAs is that there's a lot more variance in things, and that's one of the things which, if I go back to the Glide apps, the Glide app just you build it no code and it works. Well, there's a bit of code in the background of some of the things that I've been doing, but it seems to work with this. Whereas this one, there's so much sweat and blood to actually get something happening, and what I'm trading off on is that I've got a little bit of speed when I'm out and about. So I think I'd have to reflect on that as to how I progress in the future with that. Overall, I've got all of the components there, and I've got all of the logic as to how they all work. So I know if I come back to here, I can add an expense, I can clear everything off, I can add something to the database. So if I add in another item, now that's the one thing that I haven't got. If I add a new item onto there, it creates a new document ID for that particular document, and I need to go into my index, and in my list I need to actually make a new item to put into that. So that's something which you actually have to do on the back end. So to use the app, it's not totally front end. I've got another couple of projects that I actually want to play with, so I'm most probably going to put this aside and just mull it over, and then come back to it and just have a really good hammer at those last bits, because it's taken me about a week just to debug these blooming things and get this far, and it has been quite arduous in a way, but I finally got there. The other thing with the code is, I just wanted to mention, is with the code here. If we just go into here, I started off with the Ninja template. Now the Ninja template had three things going for it, for as far as I'm concerned. It had the pages all set up as far as the CSS and all of that, which was quite nice. It actually had the service workers and the whole PWA linkages going through, so that operated and that was working, and it was linking through into the Firebase file store as well. So it had those three things going for it. As I progress forward, I've been either trying to use a bit of the materialize wherever it's working, as far as if it's got items like forms and all of those, and using all of those items wherever I can. If they don't work, or if they're not playing nicely, like this form item here, I can't seem to get more numbers in here. Normally inside, if you've got this in a normal form, an item, you can use size is equal to 5, and then it will show you 5 items through here. That doesn't seem to work inside the materialize through here, so I might have to rewrite some of these forms to make these, or these select boxes to make them work in a different way. So I've tried to keep the code as to, this is the Firebase stuff that he had. I've moved the initialization across onto the beginning of this page on the DB.js, the initialization through here. But otherwise, this is all whatever he's been calling from anywhere else. I've just left him calling through there. Haven't even changed the icons or anything yet. So a lot of his images are as they were. So there were a lot of easier solutions with some jQueries and stuff like that. But I thought, no, I've got a template. I'm sticking with the template. I'll try and use the materialize or whatever else that he's calling through here. And otherwise, I'm just going to try and use vanilla JavaScript or HTML things or whatever. I'm not going to go and start using, you look up and you're suddenly seeing a similar thing to materialize would be Bootstrap. And instead of, and I'm suddenly thinking, well, maybe I should just drop materialize and go on to that. But then that's a rebuild as well. It was really, I'd taken a template and I've moved along. And so, and what I do find is when I start off with somebody else's template and go through, suddenly my code starts getting a bit messy. As I go through that, this is actually quite clean on the this side, but on here it's as scrappy as anything. There's some really messy bits of code in the JavaScript files, and the same in this one here as well. But overall, I've just tried to stick with what he has. But that's a decision that I made earlier on. I suddenly thought that. The other thing that I did with a lot of these things, I wanted to find out, and rather than trying to find a switch or a bit of code where I was trying to do the multiple texting with some of these to see that the variables were getting into where they were, I was creating extra pages on the side to actually go and test those codes. Like the very last one there is actually just using those bar graphs, the meters to demonstrate those particular items that I just want to show you. Because a lot of the videos that I saw on this did not indicate about moving this optimum into different places to get the meters to read in different ways, and I don't think on the page itself was actually highlighting anything to do with these three items, optimum, high and low. So I hope that's been of interest to you. I'll leave the code up there. I'll move off onto something else. I'll come back to this, and if I get the last lot refined and working, I'll post that on GitHub as normal, and I'll do a quick video just to say how I debug those last few major obstacles. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, can you give a thumbs up? You can also consider becoming a patron, and can you please think about subscribing too. Thank you very much for watching.